Welcome back to Primetime Local News, and we're joined by the new National Amateur Lightweight Champ, Andrew Mavridis. Thank you for joining us, as well as his coach, Garrett Tepper, also owner of the Fight Farm. Not every day we get to show off this kind of hardware in our Primetime studios, so how does it feel? I guess you're only less than a week removed from it, correct?
Yes, it feels pretty good. It's nice to know that hard work pays off.
Yeah, so this is not the first time you fought in that particular promotion, no. Which you can tell us a little bit about here, but it's the first time you fought for a national title, correct?
Yes, that's true, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you had to go through to get to that match.
So I had 3 fights in 3 days. Everything else leading up to the fight, the training, everything was all the same, but yeah. Okay,
and Garrett, you were telling me off camera that this is kind of one of the better put on promotions throughout Canada. It's from a UFC alum himself.
Yeah, absolutely. The promoter is currently a fighter as well still. In his stable he has numerous feathers in his cap per se. So like his son Jordan Means, a UFC fighter. He's trained, I think, probably 4 or 5 other UFC fighters. So it's actually also the longest running Canadian promotion for mixed martial arts in Canada as well.
So to put that in perspective, you had to go against not just time and tradition, but also the best in the country. Is that that has always been your goal, or just something in the last couple of years you started to work towards?
Yeah, that's why I kind of started. I kind of want to test myself, see what the best is, and hopefully beat the best.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's 3 fights in 3 days. Just how grueling for some people, because some people out there don't know much about MMA. How grueling is that compared to how you typically train for a fight?
It's pretty tough, you know. There's smart ways to fight about it, I guess. You can strategize, you know, and the goal is to take minimal damage, but you know, you can only do so much over the course of 3 days of fighting.
Because even still, many fighters will train for weeks or months for just a single fight, correct? Yes. Whereas you're doing 3 in 3 days. So how does the recovery time compare to a normal fight?
It wasn't too bad, actually.
It sounds like you made it out of it pretty well then.
Yeah, I took a few good shots, but I mean, I guess I got lucky. Didn't take any cuts. That was my biggest worry, was getting cut, seeing if the doctors would not let me continue or something, right? But got lucky, I guess.
Okay. And so, in terms of, so you talked about strategy. Did that mean you don't take as many chances and you play a little more defensively, or you try to end fights a little earlier so you don't have to go as many rounds?
Maybe a little bit of both, or what I did actually was just relied on my wrestling, take the fight to the ground, you know, away from bigger punches, kicks, stuff like that.
Okay. Is that more your style as a fighter in general as well, or do you like to trade blows when you can?
I do trade blows a little bit, but yeah, I do rely very heavily on my wrestling and my ground game.
Okay. Does that come? Do you have a wrestling background prior to becoming an MMA fighter?
No background whatsoever.
Okay. So what got you into the sport in the first place?
Watching it on TV, grew up watching it, and the fact that I've never been in a fight in my life, might as well start somewhere and learn properly, I guess.
I guess you might as well.
Yeah.
And we'll have more with Andrew and Garrett as well in the next hour, and a little bit more about his championship fight to become the National Amateur Lightweight. But first, here's more on Primetime Local News. Back on Primetime Local News with the new champ, Andrew Mavridis. Thank you for joining us, as well as his coach, Garrett Tepper. Now, back to the fight, particularly the last one. You fought a guy that's a little bit rangier than you are, and that's something you were saying off camera. You don't typically necessarily fight someone who's exactly your build. You tend to fight a lot of taller guys.
Yes, he had very nice kicks. I am usually the smaller guy in the division, but doesn't really matter to me. So, okay.
I guess it's something you'll have to get used to. So, what does that mean in terms of strategizing? Does that mean you have to be more mindful of when someone's on the offensive? Is it just being quicker than the other person? What's the key to fighting a bigger guy?
Closing the distance, getting it nice and tight, the clinch, the ground, takedowns, really stopping his reach advantage he has on me. Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever had to learn the lesson the hard way and take a real good shot?
I've learned too many times, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that would do that. Was there ever a moment during the fight where you thought you might be in trouble, or you were able to kind of stay pretty even keeled for most of it?
A couple times in a couple different fights, yeah. Got my bell rung one of the fights. Just had to gut it out. And then that final fight for the championship, he had a pretty tight choke on me that was either do or die. So
That's something I'm always amazed by when I watch fighters survive a chokehold of any kind in a fight. What's the key to hanging on for 30 seconds, 40 seconds longer that some guys do? Garrett, maybe I'll let you answer that first.
It's relaxing. That's first and foremost. Is the second you start to panic, you start forgetting your technique, you start resorting to strength, and if somebody is equally as strong as you or stronger, that strength is going to beat you if you don't use the proper technique. So keeping calm, relaxing is definitely the number one, and just going back to, okay, checkpoints. Okay, yes, I need to do this, I need to do this. Once you can keep that at that certain level, then you should be okay for the most part.
And this guy does a pretty good job of that?
He does an amazing job. It scares me as a coach sometimes. But you know what? We've come to get used to it, and it's maybe not the best thing, but he relaxes and he just executes the technique perfectly, whether it's an escape or, it's saved him a couple times.
Does that come from practice, or does that come from a mindset for you?
Actually, it comes from practice. We do drill. Being in a bad situation, you got to work to get out. You're tired, you have no energy, and you get a choke slapped on you, and you got to work out of it.
Yeah, there's been times in practice, and we won't say who and exactly when, but one time Andrew actually, we pushed it a little too far, and Andrew was actually choked right to sleep. Yeah. But that's after doing a huge, say a 50-minute round, we call it, which is a Shark Tank, where he gets no breaks. He gets a fresh opponent every 3 minutes, and this was towards the end, and I told this person, okay, get on his back, sink the choke in, but they really sunk it in, and it was nap time after that.
To be woken up, yeah.
That's definitely something I would not have been a natural at all. Before we go, I want to find out what's next for you. So you have this belt, you have the confidence and the momentum of it. When's your next fight, and what's the next couple of months look like for you?
So that's something me and Garrett have to discuss. I do have opportunity to go to the World Championships in Bahrain in November. The promoter Lee Mean offered me to defend my belt in October, and then there's always that option of going pro.
Okay. And have you thought pretty seriously about the pro option as well?
That's always been the top goal, but I mean, the Worlds is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so really got to weigh my options there.
Yeah, for sure. It's fairly rare honor to get to wear your flag.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming in. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Enjoy every minute you get to put it on.
For sure.
And we'll have more on Primetime Local News.